The gentleman from North Carolina is recognized.
Well, once again, I want to say thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank Chairwoman Wagner for her great leadership on the committee. I think it's been well explained about emerging growth companies. I think we've had a nice discussion here on the House floor of what we have done in Congress now 11 years ago to ensure that fast-growing, smaller companies can access our capital markets and do so with less regulatory burden, enticing them into our public markets, which enable average everyday investors to have more investment opportunities and ownership of American society as well. So, speaking to that, this bill clarifies the periods for which financial statements are required to be provided by an emerging growth company when conducting a spin-off transaction. This legislation will strengthen public markets by addressing an irregularity that was not addressed under the Jobs Act of 2012 and ensures consistent treatment for emerging growth companies, whether they're going public or spinning off a portion of their business. And so I've talked about the positive impact of emerging growth companies and of the Jobs Act generally since it was enacted into law. At that period of time in 2012, you had a Republican House of Representatives, a Democrat Senate, and a Democrat in the White House, and very few things got done. Very few things got done. And President Obama at the time wanted to address the jobs challenge in American society, wanted us to change law and regulation so that we can actually lift people out of poverty and back into the workforce. Some very important things that we discussed at Congress, but the foremost of that was the legislating we did out of the Financial Services Committee, which culminated in the passage of what was called the Jobs Act. One of the best provisions in the Jobs Act was the Emerging Growth Companies section of that, or title of that bill. That's what we're talking to and speaking of on this day. What we're trying to do is tweak that law to make sure it functions appropriately. And like all things, whether it's your home or legislation or your car, you want to adjust it from time to time to make sure it's running the way you intended it to run. That's what we're doing here today with these small changes to the Emerging Growth Companies statute and the Jobs Act. I would urge my colleagues to vote yes on this important provision, and I yield back the balance of my time.